what happens to the parents?
Be loud.
I'm Colleen DeRoche, and this is Alvin DeRoche, and Alvin's going to talk about what happens to parents after their children are taken away by the Ministry of Children and Families or whatever child protection system is in your area.
Well, I'm not an expert at what happens to parents that have their children taken away because I haven't had any children to have taken away. My wife has 5 children. My wife has 5 children, of course, and I have a unique perspective because we have a group called PAC, Parents of Apprehended Children, and over the last 5 years, we've had a chance to interview a lot of people and also connect with friends who have had their children apprehended by the ministry. And there's a common occurrence that happens, and I have to tell you that it doesn't happen right at first. You know, children are like any other human being. You know, they're very hopeful. They hope that things are going to turn out all right. They want to trust people, and you know, their parents obviously they trust, and they hope that everything will work out so that they can all be reunited. And but it's what happens a little bit down the road, a little bit at a time, a little bit at a time. These children start changing, and it's amazing because when you step back 5 years later and take a look at how many times the children used to call and how many questions the children used to ask and what type of questions the children used to ask. Are you okay, Mom?
Why can't I come home?
Why can't I come home? How come we can't see each other? This, that, and the other thing. And then the questions start coming about this is what the social worker said, and that's what the parent said, or the grandparent, or the friend, or this, that, and the other thing. There's so much over the years that gets piled on a child's shoulders, and to try to to alleviate those worries when you have no contact with them, or very little contact with them, is is devastating to the child because they don't really get the full story, and they only get the one side, of course, most of the time. And slowly but surely, you end up like, well, Colleen's children right now. Um, wha- she tries to keep a contact with them by calling them, and they just get on the phone and, yeah, no, we're all busy, and nobody wants to talk to you. And now these, you got to understand too. Like at first, these children were stuck to her legs and her arms, and the ministry was saying, um, "We've never seen children so bonded to a mother." You know, and then to watch 5 years down the road, um, kids that don't want to see her, don't want to talk to her. She hasn't seen her grandchild, which is coming up this next Friday,
As
her first birthday, yeah, and still has not met her grandchild, who was born in the care of the ministry. Um, so yeah, and then last night, because we're up here in Port Alberni, and we have meetings up here, and a couple that came, they're 2 years into their fight, and their kids are now being um, disconnected from them, and also the ministry is totally cutting them off, um, without any charges being brought against them. Um, no charges have been brought against them. No,
proof.
no proof in court has been presented. And then 2 years later, their visits are being cut to nothing.
Well, they're no longer legal parents anymore.
That's right, because they were forced into signing over custody.
Consent for continuing custody
Custody,
order.
um, because of all kinds of legal issues that were involved, and upcoming legal issues. So, you know, their lawyers said it would be best if you did it this way. And I mean, what does a parent say when it comes down to proving your guilt or innocence? You know, because you hope that when um, you you you're proven innocent, that everything will go back to normal, but it never will. It never will, because that's the time that you have with your children, um, those years up until their teenage years, that will define them for the rest of their lives, and you're supposed to have a part in that definition of who they become. And how can you do that now when all that time has been lost? And I, you know, I know we're always supposed to look back in history, you know, to better the future. But, you know, if you look back into history about how they did it with the Aboriginals, how they did it with the, the African Americans, the Jewish in Germany, um, and you know, every culture that has been oppressed over the years, that's how they did it. You know, they attacked the family. You know, they took care of the children and the women, and then the men crumbled. You know, so you know, I guess that's the theme of, you know, who stands and fights, and who lays down and dies. And this is exactly what the ministry has been trying to do and is successfully doing, um, all across the world, because this is happening in the
So like
UK.
we were saying this morning, like I said to you, Alvin, you know, if you know, if you said to another person, if you were alive in 1965 and you knew all the Aboriginal children were being scooped by the government, if you knew all the Aboriginal children were being scooped by the government, would you have helped? Would you have said, oh my God, there's something wrong with that, we've got to do something? Or would you have sat back and done nothing and thought, you know, I guess the government believes that it's the right thing to do to take these kids, you know, because it's happening now today, and people have to start asking themselves, you know, am I going to get up and help? Or am I going to sit back and let this bullshit just continue
Well, you know,
until it affects you,
you
you know?
look back in those days, those dark ages back in the 60s and the 50s and the 40s and the 30s and the 20s, and the early 1900s and the 1800s, because that's, you know, it's the same thing. Everything's the same. Nothing has changed. It's um, it's a body of people who represent the people, and we're supposed to be standing behind them. Anybody who's not standing behind them is the enemy. And so when the body of pe people who represent the people go after certain people, then all the rest of the people are supposed to stand behind the body.